I never thought I'd end up telling my story like this. I used to read posts on Reddit late at night. Confessions about betrayal, broken trust, people realizing too late that the person sleeping next to them was already gone. I always thought, that won't be me. I was wrong. My name is Jason. I'm 24 years old, and this happened in a small American town where nothing stays secret for long, except the things that matter most. I live in Pine Ridge, a quiet place with one main street, 2 gas stations, and a diner everyone pretends not to love, but secretly does. I work a regular job fixing network equipment for local businesses. It's not exciting, but it pays the bills. More importantly, it gave me stability. Or at least I thought it did. Emily, 23, was my girlfriend. We'd been together for almost 3 years. We met through mutual friends, started talking over cheap beer and bad music, and somehow never stopped. She felt familiar in the best way, like home before you realize home can change. We talked about the future a lot. Nothing dramatic, just little things. Maybe moving to a bigger city one day. Maybe getting a dog. Maybe more. I trusted her completely. I never checked her phone. Never questioned where she was. I thought that kind of trust made me mature. Turns out it just made me unprepared. The night everything fell apart didn't come with warning signs or dramatic music. It came quietly, almost politely. Emily was in the shower. Steam filled the bathroom, the sound of water hitting tiles steady and normal. Her phone was on the kitchen counter, face up. That wasn't unusual. We never hid things from each other. I wasn't snooping. I didn't even touch it. Then it vibrated. Once. Twice. The screen lit up. A name I recognized just enough to make my chest tighten. Ryan. I'd heard that name before. She'd mentioned him casually. A guy from the gym. Someone who talked too much. I remember teasing her about it. She laughed. Said I was being paranoid. The phone buzzed again. Last night was insane. I can't stop replaying it. I felt like the floor tilted under me. I didn't open the message. I didn't scroll. I didn't need to. My hands started shaking, and suddenly the apartment felt too small, too quiet. The shower was still running. Emily was humming softly, completely unaware that one sentence had just shattered everything I thought I knew. I sat down at the table and stared at the phone like it might explain itself. My mind raced through excuses for her. Maybe it's not what it sounds like. Maybe there's a misunderstanding. Maybe I'm overreacting. But my gut didn't argue. It was already sure. When Emily stepped out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, hair dripping, smiling at me like she always did, I almost felt sick. "Hey," she said. "You okay? You look weird." That was the moment I understood something I'll never forget. If I stayed quiet, I could pretend nothing happened. If I spoke up, everything would change. And deep down, I already knew the truth had been there longer than that message. I just wasn't supposed to see it. I wish I could say I confronted her immediately, that I stood up, held the phone in my hand, and demanded the truth like some guy in a movie. But real life doesn't work that way. Real life hesitates. I looked at Emily and forced myself to smile. "Yeah," I said. "Just tired." The lie tasted bitter in my mouth. She nodded, completely relaxed, and walked past me to grab clothes from the bedroom. That ease, that absolute lack of guilt, hurt more than the message itself. If she had panicked, if she had looked nervous, maybe I could have convinced myself this was new. A mistake. A single bad decision. But she was calm. Too calm. We ate dinner that night like nothing was wrong. She talked about her day, about how annoying traffic was, about how she might start taking an extra shift at work. I nodded at the right moments, laughed when I was supposed to, all while my mind replayed that message over and over. Last night was insane. Last night, she told me she was too tired to come over and wanted a quiet evening alone. I didn't sleep. I lay next to her, listening to her breathe, staring at the ceiling, wondering how long she'd been lying to me. Weeks? Months? Longer? I tried to remember when things first felt off. The extra time at the gym. The phone always face down. The sudden interest in looking perfect, even when we weren't going anywhere. I'd noticed it all. I'd just chosen not to connect the dots. The next morning, after she left for work, I picked up her phone. I hated myself for it, but I needed to know. Not just for proof, but for closure. I told myself that if I didn't find anything, I'd apologize in my head and never think about it again. I unlocked it. I knew her passcode. She never thought to change it. The messages were worse than I imagined. Ryan wasn't just a gym guy. He was a pattern. Compliments. Late-night texts. Jokes that crossed lines. And then pictures. Nothing explicit, but intimate enough to make my chest burn. Inside jokes I wasn't part of. Conversations that stretched back months. She didn't trip into cheating. She walked into it. What hurt the most wasn't just the betrayal. It was how familiar it all sounded. She used the same phrases with him that she used with me. The same emojis. The same, "I miss you," she whispered when she thought I was half asleep. I sat on the couch for a long time after that, phone in my hand, feeling numb. Anger came later. First, there was just this hollow space where my future used to be. When Emily came home that evening, I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I asked one simple question. "Is there something you want to tell me?" She froze for half a second. Just half. Then she smiled. "No," she said. "Why?" That's when I realized she wasn't just cheating. She was confident she could lie her way out of it. I showed her the phone. Her expression didn't shatter the way I expected. It shifted, tightened, then settled into something defensive. "It's not what you think," she said quickly. I laughed. I couldn't help it. A short, broken sound that didn't even feel like it came from me. "Then tell me what it is." She crossed her arms. "I didn't plan for this to happen." That was her excuse. Not sorry. Not I messed up. Just it happened. And in that moment, I understood something that changed everything. She wasn't scared of losing me. She was scared of being exposed. The argument didn't explode the way I expected it to. There was no screaming, no throwing things, no dramatic breakup scene that would at least give me something clear to hate. Instead, it dragged on in this slow, exhausting loop where every answer Emily gave felt carefully edited. "It didn't mean anything," she said at one point, rubbing her temples like I was the problem. "You're overreacting." Overreacting. That word hit harder than any confession could have. I asked her how long it had been going on. She shrugged. Actually shrugged. "I don't know. A while." A while. Months of lying reduced to 2 words. I waited for remorse. For tears. For something real. Instead, she kept explaining how she felt stuck, how things had gotten predictable, how Ryan made her feel noticed again. Each sentence pushed me further away, like she was building a wall out of excuses and calling it honesty. I realized then that the version of Emily I loved didn't exist anymore. Or maybe she never did. That night, I packed a bag. Not because I had a plan, but because staying felt impossible. As I zipped it up, she leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, watching me like I was the one making a mistake. "So that's it?" she asked. "You're just leaving?" I looked at her and felt nothing. Not anger. Not love. Just this dull emptiness. "I think you left a long time ago," I said. She didn't follow me. She didn't try to stop me. That silence followed me all the way down the stairs and out into the cold night air. I slept in my car that night, parked behind the diner on Main Street. The neon sign flickered like it always did, casting this ugly red glow over the windshield. I didn't care. I just needed somewhere to exist without pretending. The next few weeks were a blur. I crashed on a friend's couch, went to work on autopilot, and avoided every place I knew I might run into her. Pine Ridge is small. Avoiding someone there is like trying not to breathe. People noticed. They always do. Someone at work asked me if Emily and I were taking a break. Someone else told me they saw her at the gym with a guy who looked way too comfortable standing close to her. Each comment felt like a reminder that I'd been replaced before I was even gone. That's when the anger finally showed up. Not loud. Not explosive. Quiet. Focused. I started going to the gym at odd hours, not to see her, but because I needed somewhere to put the frustration. That's where things began to shift. Not because of what I saw there, but because of who noticed me. She was sitting by the windows one evening, stretching after a workout. Calm. Confident. Older. Not trying to impress anyone. She caught me looking and raised an eyebrow. "You always pace like that when you're thinking too hard?" she asked. I blinked, surprised. "What?" She smiled slightly. "You've been walking back and forth for 10 minutes. Her name was Claire. She was 34. She didn't ask me why I was there. She didn't flirt in an obvious way. She just talked to me like I was human, like I wasn't broken or pitiful or something that needed fixing. We ended up sitting on the bench outside, long after our workouts were done, talking about small things. Work. Life. Why people stay in towns that feel too small for them. When I mentioned my breakup, she didn't say I'm sorry. She said, "That kind of betrayal changes how you see everything." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in weeks, I felt understood. I didn't know it yet, but that conversation was the first step towards something that would change all of us. Especially Emily. I told myself Claire was just someone to talk to. Nothing more. That's what I needed. Conversation without history, without expectations. She was older, sure, but not in a way that felt intimidating. It felt stabilizing. We started seeing each other at the gym more often, though never on purpose. At least that's what I kept telling myself. A nod here, a short conversation there. Eventually, coffee after workouts turned into a routine. Claire worked in town too, not far from where I did. She'd moved to Pine Ridge years ago after a messy divorce and never bothered leaving. Sometimes staying is easier than starting over, she told me once, stirring her coffee slowly. I understood that more than I wanted to admit. She listened in a way that felt intentional. When I talked about Emily, she didn't interrupt or rush to offer advice. She just let the silence exist until I found the right words. That patience did something to me. One afternoon, as we sat in her car outside the cafe, she looked at me and said, "You're trying really hard to act like you're okay." I laughed it off. I am okay. She didn't argue. She just smiled slightly. You don't have to be. That was the moment something shifted. Not attraction. Not yet. Permission. Over the next few weeks, I noticed changes in myself. I slept better. I stopped checking my phone every 5 minutes. I even caught myself enjoying small things again. Music, late-night drives, stupid inside jokes with Claire that didn't mean anything and somehow meant a lot. Emily, meanwhile, hadn't disappeared. She started texting. Short messages at first. "Are you really not coming back? We should talk." I didn't respond. Then the messages changed. "I miss you. You're being immature." That last one almost made me laugh. Claire never told me what to do about Emily. She never asked to see the messages. She just said one thing that stuck with me. People hate losing control more than they hate losing people. I ran into Emily at the grocery store one evening. The aisle was too narrow, the lights too bright. She looked surprised, then annoyed, then curious. Her eyes flicked over me, like she was checking for damage. "You look different," she said. "So do you," I replied. She smiled like she used to, the smile that once made me forget everything else. This time, it didn't work. "I heard you've been hanging out with someone," she said casually. I raised an eyebrow, and she shrugged. "Just seems fast." Fast. Coming from her, it was almost impressive. I walked away before the conversation could turn into something poisonous. My hands were shaking when I reached my car, not because I missed her, but because I finally saw her clearly. That night, Claire and I sat on her porch, the air cool and quiet. She handed me a beer and leaned back in her chair. "You don't talk about her the same way anymore," she said. "I don't feel the same way anymore," I admitted. She looked at me for a long moment. "Be careful," she said softly. "Revenge feels good until you realize what it costs." I didn't answer, because part of me wasn't thinking about revenge. Not yet. But another part of me, the part that remembered every lie, every shrug, every dismissive excuse, was starting to wake up, and it was paying attention. There's a moment after a breakup where you realize you're standing on a line. On one side is healing, quiet, boring, responsible. On the other is something sharper, riskier. I told myself I was just talking to Claire, just spending time with someone who understood me. That was only half true. The first time she touched my arm, it wasn't dramatic. We were laughing about something stupid, some guy at the gym who never wiped down equipment, and her hand rested there for just a second too long. Neither of us pulled away. We both noticed. I didn't feel guilty. That surprised me. I expected some internal alarm to go off, some voice telling me this was wrong or too soon. Instead, I felt awake. Our connection didn't explode. It unfolded. Slowly. Intentionally. Claire never rushed me. She let me set the pace, even when it was obvious she knew exactly where things were heading. One night, she invited me over for dinner. Real dinner. Not coffee, not a drink. I stood in her kitchen, watching her move around like she was completely comfortable in her own skin. That confidence was magnetic. After we ate, we sat on the couch, close enough to feel each other's warmth. The TV was on, but neither of us was watching. When she kissed me, it was gentle, unhurried, like she was asking a question instead of making a demand. I answered. It didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like stepping into a version of myself I'd been ignoring. We agreed on boundaries without saying the word. No games. No pretending it was something it wasn't. It was physical, yes, but it was also grounding. She didn't need me to impress her. She didn't need validation. She just wanted honesty. Emily noticed. She didn't know details, but she felt the shift. Her texts became more frequent, more emotional. She started showing up places she knew I'd be. One afternoon, she confronted me in the gym parking lot. "So it's true," she said, arms crossed. "You're seeing someone." I didn't deny it. She laughed sharply. "Already? Wow. Guess I didn't mean that much." That old reflex almost kicked in, the need to defend myself. Instead, I stayed quiet. Her eyes narrowed. "Is it someone I know?" "No," I said. "And it doesn't matter." That's when her expression changed. Not hurt, not sadness, jealousy. She started talking about mistakes, about how things could have been different. She never apologized. She just assumed there was still space for her in my life. That night, I told Claire everything. The confrontation, the messages, the way Emily suddenly cared now that she felt replaced. Claire listened, then asked one question. "What do you want?" I didn't answer right away. "I want her to understand," I said finally. "What she did, what she lost." Claire nodded slowly. Understanding and revenge aren't the same thing. I know, but even as I said it, an idea was forming. Not cruel, not illegal, just inevitable. Pine Ridge thrives on appearances. On who's with who. On quiet judgments passed over coffee and gym mirrors. Emily cared deeply about how she was seen. And for the first time, I realized something important. I didn't need to attack her. I just needed to stop protecting her. Claire met my eyes. "If you do this," she said calmly, "do it with your eyes open." I smiled slightly. They were wide open. I didn't wake up one morning and decide to ruin Emily's reputation. That's the part people always get wrong when they hear this story. There was no master plan taped to a wall, no checklist of revenge. What happened was quieter than that. I stopped lying. When people asked why Emily and I broke up, I didn't protect her anymore. I didn't sugarcoat it. I didn't add drama either. I just told the truth. She cheated on me, I'd say calmly. No anger, no bitterness, just facts. In a town like Pine Ridge, facts travel fast. At first, it was subtle. Conversations stopped when Emily walked into a room. Friends she used to laugh with started keeping their distance. Nothing overt, just a shift, a cooling. She noticed. Her texts turned sharp. "You're turning people against me. Why would you tell them that?" I didn't respond. Claire watched all of this from a distance. She never pushed me forward, never pulled me back. She let me make my own choices, and that made me more careful than any warning could have. We kept our relationship low-key. No public displays, no announcements, just quiet confidence. But people still noticed, especially Emily. The first time she saw us together, it was at the diner. Claire had her hand resting lightly on mine, nothing dramatic. Emily walked in, froze for half a second, then forced a smile. I could see the math happening behind her eyes. Claire was older, poised, unbothered, not someone she could easily compete with. Emily sat across the room, pretending not to watch us. I didn't look back. That was the point. Later that night, Emily called me. "You did this on purpose," she said. Her voice was tight. "I didn't do anything," I replied. She laughed bitterly. "You knew this would hurt me." I paused. "You didn't seem too worried about hurting me." Silence. That was the first time she didn't have a comeback. What surprised me most was how little satisfaction I felt in that moment. I expected triumph, relief. Instead, I felt detached, like I was watching someone else's life play out. Claire noticed. "You're not enjoying this," she said one night as we sat on her porch. "I thought I would," I admitted. She nodded. Revenge is loud in your head, quiet in reality. Emily didn't stop trying. She started reaching out to Claire indirectly, asking around about her, making comments that painted herself as the victim. But every attempt only highlighted the truth she couldn't escape. People don't like being lied to. The final shift came when Ryan stopped showing up at the gym. Rumor was, he'd realized Emily was still talking to me, still circling back. He didn't like being an option. That detail hit her harder than anything I said. One evening, Emily cornered me outside my workplace. "I lost everything," she said, eyes red. "Was that enough for you?" I looked at her and felt something close to pity. "I didn't take anything from you," I said quietly. "I just stepped out of the way." She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. And maybe she was. As she walked away, I realized the revenge wasn't in watching her fall. It was in realizing I no longer needed to watch it all. Emily didn't handle losing control well. The more people stopped engaging with her version of events, the more desperate she became. It showed in small, almost embarrassing ways. Passive-aggressive posts online, exaggerated laughter when she ran into mutual friends, sudden attempts to look unbothered. None of it worked. What she hated most wasn't losing me. It was losing the narrative. Claire and I grew closer during that time, not through intensity, but through steadiness. There was no drama between us. No guessing games. She said what she meant. I said what I meant. That simplicity felt radical after everything I'd been through. One night, we talked about the age difference. "Does it bother you?" she asked, genuinely curious. I thought about it. "No. It feels intentional." She smiled at that. "Good. Because I don't do chaos anymore." Neither did I. Emily, on the other hand, thrived on it. She started showing up where Claire and I were. Bars she never went to before, events she used to complain about. Each appearance felt calculated. At a friend's birthday gathering, she finally confronted Claire directly. "So you're the reason," Emily said, glass in hand. Claire didn't flinch. "I'm not the reason for anything." Emily laughed. "You're older. You should know better." Claire smiled politely. "I do." That ended the conversation more effectively than any insult could have. I watched Emily walk away, shoulders tense, jaw clenched. She wasn't used to being dismissed. Not calmly. Not without emotion. Later that night, Emily sent me a long message. Pages of regret mixed with blame. She talked about how lost she'd been, how she never meant to hurt anyone, how seeing me with someone else made her realize what she'd thrown away. I didn't reply. Claire read the message over my shoulder, then looked at me. "Do you want to answer her?" she asked. I shook my head. "I think I already did." The next day, Emily posted something vague online about betrayal and being replaced. It didn't get the response she expected. A few polite comments. Mostly silence. That silence was loud. The town had moved on. That's when Emily did something I didn't expect. She apologized. Not to me. Publicly. She cornered me outside the diner, voice shaking, eyes glassy. "I messed up," she said. "I know that now. I hurt you. I hurt people. I just want a chance to fix it." People nearby pretended not to listen. Everyone listened. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. "I hope you figure things out," I said. "But I'm not part of that anymore." Her face crumpled, not dramatically, but genuinely. For a moment, I almost believed her. Almost. That night, Claire and I sat quietly, the window open, summer air drifting in. "You did the right thing," she said. "I know," I replied. "I just didn't think it would feel like this." She nodded. Closure rarely feels the way we imagine. I realized then that the revenge I thought I wanted had already run its course. What was left was a choice. And for the first time in a long time, that choice felt entirely mine. After Emily's public apology, something strange happened. Nothing. No dramatic fallout. No sudden redemption arc. No grand moment where everything snapped back into place. Life just kept going. And somehow, that was harder for her to accept than any punishment could have been. For me, it felt like exhaling after holding my breath for months. Claire and I settled into something real. Not loud. Not performative. We cooked together. Took late-night drives with no destination. Talked about things that mattered. Values, regrets, the versions of ourselves we didn't want to become. She never tried to rewrite my past. She respected it. That mattered. One evening, as we sat on her porch watching the streetlights flicker on, she asked, "Do you ever think about going back?" I knew exactly who she meant. "No," I said, and I meant it. Emily still existed on the edges of my life. In a town this small, there's no such thing as disappearing completely. But she was quieter now. More cautious. The confidence she once wore so easily had cracked. I didn't take pleasure in that. What I did take pleasure in was the absence of chaos. I ran into Ryan one afternoon at a gas station. He looked uncomfortable when he saw me, like he expected a confrontation. "Hey," he said awkwardly. "Hey." That was it. He didn't apologize. I didn't ask for one. We were just two guys standing in line, both knowing how badly things had gone and neither wanting to revisit it. That interaction gave me something I didn't expect, closure without words. Claire noticed the change in me before I did. "You're lighter," she said one morning, handing me coffee. Less guarded. I shrugged. I stopped carrying things that weren't mine. Emily tried once more to talk to me privately. She caught me outside the gym, voice low, eyes searching my face. "I'm not asking for another chance," she said quickly. "I just want to know, did I ever matter to you?" That question could have broken me months earlier. Now it didn't. "You mattered," I said honestly. "Just not enough to let you hurt me again." She nodded slowly, like she was filing that answer away somewhere painful but necessary. That was the last real conversation we ever had. As summer faded into fall, Pine Ridge felt different. Or maybe I did. The town hadn't changed, but my place in it had. I wasn't defined by who I lost anymore. Claire and I never labeled what we were in a dramatic way. We didn't need to. It was understood. Chosen. Stable. One night, lying next to her, I realized something that caught me off guard. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at Emily. Not at Ryan. Not even at myself. Revenge had brought me to a door. Healing was the choice to walk through it. And for the first time since that night in the kitchen, the phone lighting up, the message I wasn't supposed to see, I felt like my life wasn't a reaction anymore. It was mine again. I thought the story was over. That's the mistake most people make. They assume endings arrive with clarity. In reality, they circle back one last time, just to test whether you've really changed. It happened at the Fall Festival. Pine Ridge goes all out every year. String lights across Main Street. Food trucks. Live music that's just a little too loud. Claire and I almost didn't go. Crowds weren't really our thing. But we did. We walked hand in hand through the lights, completely at ease. No scanning the crowd. No bracing for impact. That alone felt like progress. Then I saw Emily. She was standing near one of the booths, laughing with a group of people I recognized. For a moment, I felt that old reflex twitch. Do I avoid her? Do I acknowledge her? I did neither. I kept walking. That's when she noticed us. I felt it before I saw it. The pause, the shift in energy. She excused herself from the group and walked toward us, stopping a few feet away. Hey, she said softly. Claire didn't let go of my hand. Hey, I replied. Emily looked at Claire, then back at me. You look happy. I am, I said. The word landed heavier than I expected. She nodded slowly, swallowing. I'm glad. There was no accusation in her voice. No bitterness. Just something like resignation. She turned to Claire. Take care of him. Claire met her eyes. I planned to. That was it. No confrontation. No drama. No grand speech. Emily walked away, blending back into the crowd, and for the first time, I realized she wasn't part of my story anymore, not even as a lesson. She was just someone I used to know. Later that night, Claire asked me, how did that feel? I thought about it. Final. She smiled. Good. We stood watching the fireworks from the edge of town, colors bursting over dark fields. I remembered how I used to imagine revenge, sharp, loud, satisfying. The reality had been quieter, more permanent. Emily's loss wasn't me moving on with someone else. It was me moving on without her. As we drove home, I caught my reflection in the window and barely recognized the guy staring back. Not because I'd changed completely, but because I'd finally stopped trying to be someone else. I didn't need validation. I didn't need closure wrapped in apology. I needed peace. And I had it. Looking back, it's strange to realize how small decisions shaped everything. A single message. A shrug. A choice to walk away. Life in Pine Ridge moves slowly, but in those months, everything accelerated for me. Emotions, trust, betrayal, and eventually, clarity. Claire stayed a constant through it all. She didn't fix me, didn't rescue me, didn't demand a timeline. She just existed in a way that made it easier for me to exist too. That quiet confidence was more powerful than any plan of revenge I could have imagined. Emily became a memory, but not in the clean, forgetful way I once hoped. Her presence lingered at the edges, a reminder of how fragile trust can be, and how quickly it can dissolve when someone else decides they'd rather lie than communicate. But I didn't feel bitterness anymore. Her mistakes were hers to live with. My role wasn't punishment, it was moving forward. There's a lesson in that I wish I'd understood sooner. Revenge isn't about the person who hurt you. It's about reclaiming yourself. It's the quiet, deliberate act of not letting someone else's choices define your life, your happiness, or your future. I don't write this to gloat or to claim moral high ground. I write it because I think someone out there needs to hear that it's possible to move through betrayal and come out intact, maybe even stronger. But only if you choose your path carefully. Only if you focus on yourself and the people who actually see you. Claire and I never needed dramatic declarations. We didn't need to post pictures or status updates. Our story is private, steady, real. The kind of story that grows roots quietly, away from gossip and judgment. That's the difference between fleeting victory and lasting peace. Sometimes I see Emily around town. She's different now, quieter, cautious. She avoids me, and I avoid unnecessary interaction. There's no satisfaction in her silence. Satisfaction would have been temporary. The truth is permanent, and it travels faster than lies ever could. I've started to trust again, cautiously, not blindly, not recklessly. I've learned to recognize red flags, to listen to intuition, and to value the people who bring consistency, honesty, and calm. That knowledge, that awareness, is worth more than any fleeting anger or fleeting triumph. Looking back at 24-year-old me, the guy who never imagined betrayal could hurt this much, I feel a mixture of pity and pride. Pity because I was naive, because I allowed trust to be weaponized against me. Pride because I survived, because I didn't let it harden me into someone cruel or unfeeling. I let the experience teach me instead of break me. Pine Ridge hasn't changed. Its streets, lights, and quiet corners remain the same. But I have. And the people who matter, the ones who choose integrity, the ones who choose honesty, stay. The rest become lessons, not anchors. Sometimes, I sit on Claire's porch at night, lights of the town faint in the distance, and think about how fragile life is, how fast betrayal can arrive, and how resilient we can be when we make deliberate choices. I don't need revenge anymore. I don't need validation. I don't need apologies I'll never fully receive. I have something better: peace, growth, and a sense of control over my own story. And for the first time in a long time, I can finally say I feel free.